Puffins, welcome to what I think is going to be a pretty interesting video. Pseudocide. When someone leaves behind evidence to suggest that they're dead to mislead others, usually because they owe money or they're fleeing from the law, or there's other reasons why someone would fake their own death, because that's essentially what that is. Okay, so this is a topic that I find extremely interesting. So I was like, why don't you make a video about it, Chelsea? And then I was like, okay, Chelsea, let's do that. And that's what we're doing. And honestly, I could make an entire series about this because there's so many people who have attempted this, and honestly, I bet we don't even know half of them, because I bet there's a ton out there that have attempted it and have gotten away with it that we just think are dead. But today I've got 3 for you that I personally are some of my favorites. I find them super fascinating. So let's just start. Lawrence Joseph Bader, also known as John Fritz Johnson. Lawrence was a 31-year-old cookware salesman from Akron, Ohio. He had a wife, Mary Lou, 3 kids, another one on the way, life going great. He was in debt though. He was $20,000 in debt. I looked it up, and in 2017, that's about 174, give or take, $1,000. So that's, an alright amount of money. Now Lawrence didn't know what to do, so he faked his own death, because what other options are there? So on March 15th, 1957, Bader rented a boat, went on a fishing trip to Lake Erie, and then his boat was found the next day after it had stormed. Then 4 days later, John Fritz Johnson made his first appearance at a bar in Omaha, Nebraska. Now Fritz was an outgoing guy. He had a big personality, immediately drew attention in Omaha for sitting on a flagpole for 30 days to raise money for charity. His personality led to him becoming a bartender, then a radio announcer, and then a TV sports director. And before you knew it, he was one of Omaha's largest personality celebrity people. Fritz drew even more attention by driving around a hearse that was equipped with pillows, a bar, an incense burner, and he called it his hunting vehicle on account of the crazy bachelor lifestyle he was living at this time. But he did finally settle back down to a woman named Nancy Zimmer, a 20-year-old divorcee. They got married, he adopted her daughter, and then they went on to have a son. Then in 1964, Fritz discovered that he had a tumor behind his left eye. He ended up losing the eye and wore an eye patch, which only added to this character that he had been portraying. Now Fritz loved archery, and on February 2nd, 1965, he attended an archery tournament in Chicago. That was where an old acquaintance from Akron saw him, recognized him, even with the eye patch and this new mustache he had been sporting, and was like, hey, wait dude, that's him, that's him. So this dude calls over Larry Bader's niece, who's 21 now, and he's like, hey, isn't that him, isn't that him? And she looks at him convinced, goes over to him. She's like, pardon me, but aren't you my Uncle Larry Bader who disappeared 7 years ago? He just laughs it off. He's like, huh, good one. But they're still not convinced. So the girl calls in the actual Larry Bader's 2 brothers to come into town and be like, hey man, we got your brother here. And they end up taking his fingerprints and comparing them to Larry Bader's military records. It's a match. Duh. And believe it or not, this is where it gets super crazy. John Johnson went on to claim that he had amnesia, and he had no idea what they were talking about. According to him, he was now faced with the fact that all of his memories are false, and not only that, he now has 2 wives. He's quoted as saying, "It was like a physical shock. Up until that moment, I had no doubt that I was not Larry Bader. But when I heard that, it was like a door had been slammed and somebody had hit me right in the face." Now his reappearance caused a lot of problems for his first wife, Mary Lou. She had been receiving $254 every month from Social Security, and she'd also received over $39,000 from Bader's life insurance policy back when he had died. And that money would now have to be paid back. Mary Lou was also recently engaged, and since her marriage to Bader had been reinstated and she was Catholic, the new marriage was impossible, so she couldn't get married. Psychiatrists went on to examine Bader for 10 days and concluded that Johnson had no recollection of his former life, anything from it, and that cases of amnesia lasting several years are rare, but they're not necessarily unheard of. Ultimately, the tumor that had taken Bader's eye resurfaced and ended up taking his life on September 16th, 1966. And his death meant that the question of whether he was an amnesiac, a schizophrenic, or a hoaxer was never resolved. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, because I personally think that he was just trying to BS his way out of a situation that he had gotten himself in. I think that he had just gotten too deep and was like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? I'll just go die, but not really. All right, this next guy's name is John Stonehouse, aka AJ Markham. and apparently he had like other names he went by, but that was the main one, I think. An accomplished son of a Southampton mayor, John was a graduate of the London School of Economics, a postmaster general, and served as secretary to the Ministry of Aviation. He even aspired to one day become prime minister. But he had problems in his personal life. He was trapped in an unhappy marriage and he wanted to be with his secretary / lover. He ultimately decided to create an alternate identity and fake his own death. So he acquired a passport under his new name, AJ Markham. He opened foreign bank accounts, and then finally he staged his disappearance while on a trip to Florida. On November 7th, 1974, he went to a beach in Miami, took off his clothes, put them in a pile, and walked away. Now initially everyone thought that he was really gone, and he probably would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for some like extremely unlucky timing. On November 7th, around the same time that Stonehouse disappeared, the wealthy Richard John Bingham, Earl of London, disappeared after being suspected in the crime of where like his wife was beaten and their nanny had been murdered. Then Stonehouse visited a bank in Australia, made such a sizable deposit that it made the bank teller suspicious. Now the police thought that he could be Lord Lucan, so they put him under surveillance, only to find out that not only was he not Lord Lucan, he was the missing John Stonehouse. John was then deported back to Britain and sentenced to 7 years in prison for theft and fraud. Lord Lucan, however, was never seen again. Which honestly I feel like is ridiculous because I feel like his crimes are way worse than Stonehouse's crimes, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think. Okay, on to the last one, and I saved the best for last because this one is absolutely hilarious. Like if faking your own death could be funny, this is funny. So our last guy's name is Benny Went, also known as James Sweet. He was a 29-year-old man who was involved in a narcotics ring and was getting more and more paranoid that the police were gonna catch up to him. So that's when Benny came to the conclusion that he had two options. Either he could let the police catch up to him, serve his time, get out, live life with his family, or two, he could fake his own death. And obviously we know what he chose because he's in this video. So in September 1989, Benny, his fiance, and their 4-year-old daughter went to Daytona Beach, Florida so that the couple could get married. And while they were there, he just vanished. He disappeared, and everyone just assumed he had drowned or gotten eaten by a shark. That was the two things that I could find. His fiance and daughter were obviously super distraught by this, but eventually, you know, they moved on. But Benny over here, Benny moved away. He started a new life. He got a new name, James Sweet, married another woman, and even had another child. Then one day, 20 years later, James got pulled over in North Carolina because the light on his license plate was malfunctioning. He gave the cop his fake name, the cop ran it through the database, and obviously nothing showed up. Now the cop thought that he had been given a fake name, so he actually ended up arresting James on the charges of suspicion of driving without a license and giving false information, and then he was booked under the name John Doe. So he finally confessed that he was not in fact James Sweet, but he was a man named Benny Went who had been on the run since 1989. Ready for the hilarious part? Benny was never on the police's radar. Back in 1989 when he started to run because he thought they were gonna catch up to him, they had no idea who he was. No cop had even heard of a Benny Went. So literally everything he did was totally pointless. And also, not only that, but since faking your own death is in fact illegal, he now has a criminal record. All right, Puffins, that's all I've got for you today. I hope y'all enjoyed those. I know I did. It's very fascinating to me. What do you think about them? Have you ever thought about trying to fake your own death? I actually looked it up the other day. It turns out it's very illegal and very expensive. So I'll probably never do that. Never know though. Yeah, so subscribe to become a Puffin if you want. They're really cute, and I will see you guys next time.